possible to meet. And
which of course is much maligned in many countries. But I think they've always been giving us good advice. But this is the first time that they have given Pakistan a leeway. They have been not inflexible. In the past, they used to oblige countries, and I can say this from the experience of several countries, where they were forced to accept policies which the governments could not sustain. But now they have come to an arrangement with Pakistan where we can pursue our policies to revive our industry, our agriculture, our services sectors, and attain all those objectives which are common objectives, whether recommended by IMF or homegrown in Pakistan. And we hope that by the end of September or early October, we will have in place an extended structural adjustment facility that will allow Pakistan an even greater flexibility to pursue the high growth path. And I think it is possible if Pakistan governments pursue policies that they have declared to attain our objectives and to get out of the difficulties that we have been for some time now. I think it's important to understand where the difficulties lie and what the serious problems are. In my view, the most serious problem is the huge deficit that governments accumulate each time. It's like the mother of most evils in our economic system. With high deficit levels, the government sector crowds out the private sector. With high deficit levels, they have to print more money. With high deficit levels, there is invariably higher inflation. Higher inflation means that our goods become not so competitive with our trading partners, and we have to devalue. It means increase in costs, further increase in costs, and so on. So we get into a vicious cycle. We've got to get out of that vicious cycle. We've got to contain governmental expenditure. We've got to reduce and downsize government. The corporations, many of whom were never reined in, they need to be reined in. Many of the corporations in the autonomous and semi-autonomous sectors need to be abolished. The government has to take bold decisions. The Pakistani nation has to back those bold decisions. Unless we do that, we will never get out of the vicious cycle that we've been involved in. And it's important for us to reduce the deficit. Reduction in deficits will mean lesser borrowing. They will mean that we will be in a position to reduce the huge debt burden that we have acquired. Good, quick privatization, where we get the maximum for the sale of our family silver. This will mean that we can retire much or some, at least, of the huge debt that has accumulated. At least initially, we can retire the most expensive debt, and that will be a big relief, because from that relief will come greater allocations for the social sector. From that relief will come greater allocations for important public sector infrastructural projects. For several years now, we have not been diverting sufficient funds for public sector development programs. It is important also to reprioritize all those programs, all those big elephant, white elephant projects which do not contribute significantly to the economy. They must be shut down or closed or cancelled. We've got to go for those programs and projects which can impact on economic revival the soonest. The picture isn't dark at all, despite what people might have said. I think we have a very bright future, because Pakistan is a country with great resources. Our biggest resource is the 140 million people of Pakistan. Now this resource needs to be sustained, it needs to be developed. The great potential hidden in our 140 million people needs to be brought out in the service of the nation and the people of Pakistan. This is, as I said earlier, one resource which we have consistently neglected over the last 50 years. And I hold every government responsible, including the governments that I have been. It's a sad confession I have to make, but here is one area which we've always neglected, and to our peril, and I think we cannot neglect it anymore. There are vast opportunities lying available for us just to grab. The Commandant talked of certain technologies. I tell you, in the information technology field alone, even given our low literacy rates, we still have a huge population. Even with one-third literacy, we still have 45 million people. This is more than the population of many countries. And these people who are educated, from amongst them there are several million who have been educated up to matriculation, FA, MA, BA, who are engineers. There are 5,600 engineers in Pakistan who are unemployed. Many more sub-engineers who are unemployed. Many with aptitudes and logical mindsets who can be inducted into the IT field at short notice with 6 months courses. I estimate, and realistically, that in the next 18 months we can increase our exports of information technology from the current levels of $22 million to over $500 million in the next 18 months. It is possible, and we are going to do it, inshallah. We've got all the basic program and the plan which has to be taken up on war footings ready for this. We need the cooperation of many organizations, including the armed services. Similarly, there are other areas where in agriculture, in the water sector, just a mere improvement of the drainage system of Pakistan, by running drag lines and backhoes through our drainage system, cleaning them up, desilting them, removing the weeds from our drainage system, will increase our production of agricultural crops by a very significant margin, perhaps sufficient to reduce the gap between exports and imports in a very significant way. Improvements in the canal maintenance will allow water to reach the fields of farmers at the tail ends, significantly increasing our agricultural productivity. Lining of water courses under the on-farm water management scheme, which is a simple procedure with 1/3 of the cost being borne by the farmers, the rest by international agencies. That scheme alone can save in 5 years' time almost the equivalent of a Tarbela dam, almost 11 million acre feet of water within 2 years, without substituting any other extra land under some of these oilseed crops. So we have the potential. Today, in the manufacturing sector, the liberal packages provided by government to get SIP units functioning, I think those liberal packages need to be taken up by industrial magnates. I don't think there's any place in the world, any country in the world, where they've received such a liberal package, where they just have to pay 5% of the accumulated interest, which may be 2 or 3 times the cost of the original loan, and they get back, the entire interest is written off. So there are fantastic opportunities. The restructuring has been done. What we need to do now is to move ahead. One area where I think we are fundamentally weak and which we need to improve is on our revenue side, the tax administration in Pakistan. If this is not corrected, we will not be able to achieve our targets of reducing the debt, reducing the budget deficit. And this will be a disaster for Pakistan. We are already moving from a customs-based revenue system to a GST-based system. We're moving towards documentation of the economy. We have already levied agricultural income tax. So most of the country's economy needs now to be brought under documentation. And we need a revamped taxation system. We need advice from the best sources in the world of how to revamp our taxation system. And if we can do that, then again there will be a big jump in our revenues without imposition of any new taxes. And I think it's important for us to lay maximum emphasis on that, because there's only a limit to cost cutting. We cannot go beyond that limit. I think there's still scope for cost cutting in government, but there is a limit. What we need to do is improve the tax to GDP ratio. In spite of all the taxes levied every year, almost equivalent to sometimes 2% of the GDP, 1% of the GDP invariably, all that has not resulted in any increase in the tax to GDP ratio, because our taxes are inelastic. We need elastic taxes which grow with the economy, so that you do not have to impose new taxes every year. And I think this is one area where the government needs to pay maximum attention so that we can get out of our economic difficulties. Defense has been neglected because of our scarce resources. Pakistan's defense needs more updating. We need better technologies. We need better weapon systems. We need to modernize our forces in all the three services. But where are the resources going to come from? I think the defense forces have cooperated eminently well with the government of Pakistan, and they're part of the government of Pakistan. But they haven't cried about it. They're indulging in cost-cutting exercises, which I think is a very good thing they've done. But they need to be modernized. They need to increase their budgets in real terms, which we have not been able to do. And I hope that with the improvement in the economy, the governments will be able to pay more attention to our essential defense requirements. Pakistan does not have any aggressive intentions against any country. We are a peace-loving people. We have never desired war, but we wish to maintain our sovereignty and our integrity. We live in troubled times. We live in a volatile region. We live in exciting times as well. I think there are great opportunities available for Pakistan to play its rightful role in the region in which we live. We live in a region which is really the junction of many civilizations. The South Asian and Indian civilization to our east, the great Chinese civilization to our north, and to the north and northwest, the Central Asian civilization, then Iran and Afghanistan, and the Arab civilization to our southwest. And living in this important region, which has great significance strategically for many reasons, Pakistan needs to remain strong fundamentally in the economic sense, and that will enable us to maintain our integrity and for us to play a rightful role for regional peace and world peace. A country like ours has played a significant role in world peace. We have provided our men, our officers, for United Nations peacekeeping forces, and I think Pakistan has perhaps more experience in this than any other country in the world. Our contingents have been large. We've had varied experience in almost all the continents. And we are proud of that. And we are proud of our armed forces that provided those personnel. Pakistan has always sought in multilateral agencies and international fora in the United Nations, the OIC, ECO, we've tried to play a salutary role for peace. We believe in nuclear non-proliferation. Our objectives are the same as NPT's, but we cannot accept iniquitous impositions on us. We have to look to our own security concerns, and we need understandings within our region. And unless we can have that assurance, unless we can be sure of that, unless others in our region also accept NPT standards, Pakistan, I'm afraid, cannot do so. We have played a very positive role in the negotiations for CTBT. We're willing to play a positive role in the negotiations for the FMCT and for all other causes for putting an end to weapons of mass destruction in the world. But there is need for justice and equity. Pakistan is faced with some very difficult problems. We faced these problems from the time that we gained independence. Kashmir is not just an emotional issue with us. Kashmir is not just a humanitarian issue for us, and it certainly is not a territorial issue for us. Kashmir is for us connected to the very genesis of Pakistan and India. Kashmir is connected with the reasons why India and Pakistan came into being. We have international law on our side. We have United Nations Security Council resolutions, some of the oldest resolutions of the United Nations on our side. And yet, many in this world wish to shut their eyes to Kashmir. They wish to forget about it, but we cannot forget about it. And the world will also try to forget about it at its own cost. Doesn't history teach the world what happens when injustice, iniquity, when terrorism and brutality have never spared even those who tried to accommodate with them? Haven't we seen what happened just prior to the Second World War, the efforts of Chamberlain? Haven't we seen what has happened in many other parts of the world? The injustices, the brutality, the gang rapes, the ethnic cleansing that goes on in Kashmir is no less than what happened in Bosnia. For a long time, Europe, enlightened Europe, shut its eyes out to Bosnia. But with what results? Belatedly, they try to resolve the problem in Bosnia. But in the meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people, men, women, young children had been brutally murdered. And this is a blot on the conscience of humanity, but more so on the conscience of Europe. And now they shut out their eyes. They want to, just because Kashmir is not on the television screens in the West, doesn't mean that it's not a problem. The problem is there, as large, if not larger, than the problem of Bosnia. And this needs to be addressed. We don't say that we wish to acquire Kashmir. No, all we want is a peaceful resolution of Kashmir. I had the privilege of visiting India for the SAARC conference in May 1995, and I also had the privilege of meeting with Indian leadership at all levels, including their opposition and including their government and their think tanks and their newspaper editors. And I told each one of them, I said, why are you imposing such a huge military force on the people of Kashmir? Never in history have we seen such a large force against freedom-loving people in that small area. And they said, well, no, your figures of 500,000 are not correct. I said, what is your figure? They said 300,000. I said, even 300,000 is perhaps the biggest ratio we've ever had. But I said, I'll go back to Pakistan and I'll tell our ambassadors, all those ambassadors in Pakistan, and I'll tell our foreign office to tell them exact disposition of Indian troops and police and paramilitary forces. And we proved it that they had 500,000. And I told them that if you increase the numbers, it's not going to help you, because you have alienated the whole people of Kashmir. And today they have over 625,000. They've had sham elections, but with what results? But some of the many important countries of the world, they prefer not to talk about it. Why? Because they have expediency before them. They want to trade with a country which has large population. But this will hurt the world, it will hurt humanity. And we hope that the people of India and Indian leadership will see reason one day. That is why we are engaged in peaceful dialogues with them. That is why our Prime Minister took the initiative of restarting this dialogue. We've already held one secretary's level meeting recently, and the other one is due from today. We welcome this. We hope that working groups will be formed for resolving the Kashmir issue in a peaceful way. We want India to reduce its troop levels. We want them to do away with brutality, custodial killings, gang rapes. We want them to start moving towards peace. They will find Pakistan not wanting in moving towards peace based on principles. We are always ready for that. And then I told the Indian leadership at that time, and we'd like to tell them again, that they must weigh the advantages of peace in the subcontinent. Peace in the subcontinent, which is bedeviled by the issue of Kashmir, will mean peace to 1/5 of all humanity. It will mean the realization of mega projects like the gas projects, the oil pipeline projects from Central Asia to Pakistan to India. India is starving for energy, especially on its western parts. From Delhi to Maharashtra, India is starving for energy. They have a shortage of 40,000 megawatts in this area. Another 2 or 3 years, this will go up to 100,000 megawatts. Well, let the oil and gas pipelines come. Let the unit costs of gas go down. Both Pakistan and India gain by that. Everyone gains, but they must resolve the Kashmir issue. They must move in that direction. So we hope that there will be a change of heart. I don't expect miracles overnight, but I hope that if we persist, and we will persist, in peaceful resolution of the problem, I hope that we will sooner or later, one day or the other, arrive at a peaceful solution. We have on our western border Afghanistan, and I don't wish to, already I think I've taken up too much of your time. We are beyond the scheduled limit. But in Afghanistan, we have a great human tragedy which continues to be enacted and reenacted. The biggest tragedy, of course, was the arrival of the Soviet invasion troops. Then Pakistan stood out as the frontline state to preserve the integrity and sovereignty of Afghanistan with the people of Afghanistan. We sacrificed a great deal. We had more than 3 million refugees from Afghanistan in Pakistan. We still have 1.4 million refugees from Afghanistan in Pakistan. We want them to go back in dignity and honor. The sooner the better. So there is no country in the world that wants peace in Afghanistan more than Pakistan. In fact, I tell our Afghan brothers and sisters that perhaps, and I can say so surely, Pakistan wants peace in Afghanistan even more than the Afghanis themselves want peace, because they haven't done anything significant to bring peace to their own country. Pakistan wishes not to act like a big brother. We don't think we are big brothers. We are brothers to the Afghani people. Any country that has tried to act as a big brother or boss has had its fingers burnt, including the British Empire and the Soviet Empire. We are no fools. We don't wish to interfere in the affairs of other countries. We do not wish to impose any system there. We have no favorites in Afghanistan. There is much talk of Pakistan having favorites in the form of Taliban because they are Pashtuns. I want to assure you, and I want to assure the rest of the world, that we have no favorites in Afghanistan. We have been on friendly terms with all the groups in Afghanistan. We have sustained them, we have provided them sanctuary, we have provided them succor. For 18 years, all we want them to do is sit down, not be misled by others or by their own selfish interest, and to arrive at a peace which is based on justice and equity. A peace which takes into account the interests of all the ethnic groups. Afghanistan must remain united. It must remain sovereign. And foreign interference must cease in Afghanistan. And we wish to work not under our umbrella. We wish to work under the umbrella of the United Nations. We wish the OIC to facilitate that process. And we wish Pakistan, and we endeavor that Pakistan also facilitate that process. And I want to assure you that we will continue to do that without taking sides, without having favorites. We would try to facilitate an early peace in Afghanistan, because that will also, I think, bring about a big change in this entire region, and that will have ramifications which will be very great for regional peace. If we can have settlement in Afghanistan, then we can have and expect an explosion of economic activity in the Central Asian states, with Russian Siberia, with Iran, and of course between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and even India will benefit from trade. Therefore, I think it's important for us to work closely with all the neighbors of Afghanistan. And the neighbors include Pakistan, China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran. We must work closely with them and with other friendly countries like Saudi Arabia, like the United States, like the Russian Republic. And that is why Pakistan is currently endeavoring to see if we can get such parties together, if we can get the neighbors of Afghanistan and some other parties together for talks for peace, which will ultimately have to be, we feel, under the United Nations umbrella. So I hope that we will have peace in Afghanistan, inshallah, and that peace will bring enormous benefits to all the countries. And I'd like to repeat, including Iran, including the Russian Republic, including the Central Asian republics. I'd like to also say one last thing, which is that countries like Pakistan have reached a stage of development where we need to pay very serious attention to acquiring by every means possible higher levels of technology in selected fields. I think it's very important for our planners. And when I say this, I don't mean just the government, but even other agencies, departments under the government. I think it's very important for decision makers in the armed forces. It's very important for decision makers in universities,